Whoa! Welcome back to the channel. Today we are out aboard the Orbea Wild. I've had this bike for a bit over a month and it's a lot of fun. It has the same motor as that transition regulator, which is good, and it also has the updated software that I had been running on the transition. It is still a full power e-bike though, so it is kind of hefty, similar to that regulator. So, you know, that MT is a little bit more fun on a lot of things, but blasting uphill, wow, these are almost comical. This is that eMTB plus mode, so the new mode for the Bosch CX motor that just rallies uphill and has you trying to dodge trees. So what are we looking at? The Wild I have here is set up with mixed wheels and has a 750 watt-hour battery, but can be had with a smaller 600 watt-hour. And that motor update I already mentioned means it has 100 Newton meters of torque, 750 watts, and more support, up to 400%. The Wild has 170 millimeters of travel front and rear with Orbea's linkage-driven single pivot design, with the pivot around the rear axle. So not only is it a full power bike, but a big one at that, ready to take on whatever you can throw at it. Check out the geometry numbers here, but overall it's a very natural feeling fit for me. The bike I'm riding is the eMTB XT mechanical, with Fox factory suspension including a 38 up front and Fox Float X2 out back. Nothing feels out of place, and while they did just release a little bit of an update with a nice color screen and XTDI2, if you're looking for a deal, check out Jensen USA. Warning, the sizes are limited. I did my now standard full power range test on this bike, as well as tried to kill the battery every time I rode it. Most of my rides on this bike hit 5,000 feet in climbing, and that usually took 1.5 to maybe 2 hours. Oh yeah. The range test was 5,000 feet, 16.59 miles, and 2 hours and 4 minutes. I should mention that this ride specifically was with the motor update turned all the way up. That said, I took it up over 5,000 feet a few times, and the Wild was perpetually the last man standing. But let's get into how this thing climbs, because, you know, it's got a motor, but it still climbs really good. This has possibly the best body position of a full power e-bike. I really liked the Regulator, but it is a long bike, so specifically on switchbacks, it was a lot to turn. And on my testing switchback, it just didn't work. The old switchback test. So I looked it up and I was surprised to find the Regulator is actually a shorter bike. Not by much, and while both bikes were comfortable, the Wild just pivoted around switchbacks with less effort. Wow, this bike is really well centered. Oh yeah, that's good. Oh man. Oh. Oh. There we go. Woo! Third time's the charm. For traction and efficiency though, basically top marks. The CX Bosch motor, especially with the eMTB and eMTB Plus, make for one of the best technical climbing e-bikes. There's no give out like I've mentioned with some of the motors where you're halfway up a steppy or chunky bit and you all of a sudden don't have power. So that part's great. That's how the Orbea Wild gets up the hill. All right, let's get into the fun stuff. I've talked about it before, but due to the weight and balance, e-bikes tend to do well in the chunk. However, Orbea takes it a step further by getting that battery as low as possible in the frame. It descends nearly as well as a downhill bike. With 40% progression, that sounds crazy, but small bump compliance is nearly the best I've felt. The mid-stroke is super supportive, and it takes those big hits and impacts without feeling all that weight. We now have a top performer. The Regulator and Evo are close, but this is undeniably better. Jumping into the steeps, this is a hard one because like the Regulator, it just feels so solid and controlled. It's the big impacts and compressions as well as when you're fully on the brakes that you get more bottom out resistance and control. However, we have really steep riding around here, and when things get extreme, those brakes still struggle. This is the hardest section. I prefer this setup to the Regulator's Tektros, but still, as things got loose, slimy, or steep, I just became more of a passenger. Woo! Would a 220 front rotor help? Maybe, but I'm more interested in trying those new Shimano brakes. Jumping, the linkage-driven single pivot felt smaller than the Regulator. I was less afraid of bigger jumps and was okay letting the bike take the hit on big landings. I know this is something in my own head, and as I'm proving with these e-bikes, even the weighty ones can jump, but there's still a noticeable difference when trying to move them about in the air. Last in the corners, for the same reason I couldn't give it the best rating in the steeps. The Wild is nearly there, but the heft can get away from you. The mid-stroke support allows for easier movement and line choice. It tracks well in sweepers, and the low center mass is again surprisingly maneuverable, but it's still there. Overall, this is a very fun full power e-bike that you're going to struggle to make excuses for. So how's it look in the Loam library? A 41 puts it nearly at the top and edges out the Regulator for full power e-bikes. Let's compare it to the Transition. I'll do my best to explain exactly what I mean. First off, climbing. Without looking, I could have sworn the Orbea is shorter. However, when I looked, it's actually 10 millimeters longer. These bikes are so close on paper that I can't totally explain it. I think it's just the smallest of differences in the seated climbing position and perhaps a little more efficient pedaling platform. Which is the right move, because this is stupid steep and comical that you can pedal up it with an e-bike even. When it comes to descending, the differences are more explainable. 10 and 20 millimeters of extra travel take the edge off in the chunk, and the suspension tracks the ground no matter how hard you get on the brakes. It's that suspension that is also happy to get its nearly 50 pounds off the ground, whether that's moving about the trail, off a jump, or simply helping you place the bike. The weight disappears more than other e-bikes and more than the Regulator. When it comes to quality and value, I'm not sure what to say. The Wild looks great, but the headset cable routing, ugh. E-bikes are already hard enough to work with when it comes to internal cable routing. When it comes to the rest of the bike, the paint looks better than most, and this thing was quiet for an e-bike. Yeah, when you bottom really hard, there are still some noises, but I think that comes with the weight. Value though, Transition and Orbea are doing pretty well. The biggest upside to the Orbea is more options, and right now you can get some killer deals on Jensen USA. The kiosk is also a possible upgrade, so at this point with the motor update, there's no difference between 2025 and 2026. Final thoughts on who is this bike for? When it comes to full power e-bikes, it better have all the descending capability, and really the Wild does. I would probably need at least a bigger rotor, and would maybe go with that smaller battery to shave a few pounds. The more I ride the Schwalbe radial tires, the more I'm not convinced, but that's also not the whole story. Climbing, they are just crazy. The contact patch, especially for the smaller 27.5-inch rear wheel, claws at the dirt, roots, and rocks. Descending though, I just keep airing up the tires and still dinging the rim. The ultra soft compound is also not as grippy as the Maxxis Max Strip, so on rock features, especially with the added e-bike weight, I just don't have the control I'd like. Let's get back to who this bike is for. If you're looking for an enduro full power e-bike, this is my choice, at least for now. The Bosch CX line is by far the most natural motor I've felt, and I know with all the commotion over the new DJI motor that I may eat my words soon enough. At just over 48 pounds, it has more battery and more travel than the transition regulator, at less than a pound more. It's also more than 5 pounds less than the Evil Apocalypse. It has a more playful and energetic feel than many e-bikes, and as someone who likes to get the bike off the ground, it'll work with you, at least to a point. E-bikes keep evolving, and I wouldn't be afraid to dive in with the Wild. More laps, more fun, less compromise. Thanks for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss out. It seems like all of these brands are dropping new bikes every few weeks, and I'm doing my best to keep up. Last I checked, nearly 85% of you are still not subscribed, so please do me the favor. Also, if you need anything for yourself or your ride, check out Jensen USA and the other affiliate links in the description and on my channel's page. Now is a great time to pick up one of these Wild e-bikes. So get out there, go fast, and take chances. See you next week.